Okay, two questions in the Q&A. All right. Let's see. Azadi, which two questions are yours? Oh, is it this one?
Oh, we can hear somebody now.
I think that might be you.
Hi guys.
Nope. Somebody else.
Hey,
That's hey, lots.
morning. Oh, hey,
Morning.
lads.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Who's there?
Azadi, Yizi, and Nikolai.
Hmm.
I can't see that Q&A thing.
You can't see the
Oh,
document
here
at
it is.
all?
I found it. I searched for it. I found it.
Okay.
So what questions are we looking at?
I don't know. Azadi went to figure it out.
Explain how group works. Explain how group. Oh, okay. There's some docs already here.
This is just a compilation from last weekend
Got it. Got
email threads, right?
it. Is data normalized? Almost definitely not.
Well, it is in some cases, right? We have standardized titles. That's normalized. I
Yeah.
mean, it depends how normalized you want. But then there's also the raw text.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Here's country codes. Um, okay, Isa, if you don't have any questions, maybe I'll just dive in and pick up on the tutorial. Azadi, I don't know if you located the question you want us to answer. I think it is very slow on my side.
Oh, got it.
Isa, can you hear us? Huh.
In case you're speaking, you're muted, so that's why we might not be hearing you. Feel free to use the chat. He's sorry. I'm trying to send information. Okay. Data dictionary file is not consistent with data in the gateway.
Okay. Did you find an instance? I noticed you mentioned company/companies. I checked, and it looked to me to be consistent. But did you find a specific, for
Location
example,
info.
location info? Okay, let's take a look.
Which source are you talking about for location info? In company. Okay.
Location info and company are missing. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's take a quick look. It's always helpful to check but verify. I'm going to take a quick look at that file. I'm a little surprised because I don't remember scrubbing out location info from companies when we were creating this data set. Okay. Oops, what did I screw up? Okay. Mismatched. Semicolon. All right, guys, I'm taking a look at that file that you pointed out. Load, blah, blah, blah. As oh,
Excuse us.
okay, I need a K init. These are
It's
all.
good to do a live coding session. That way
It
everybody
is.
sees that
That's right.
it's a problem for everybody, not just them.
I can never remember when to do a K init. Somebody told me once that they wrote a script that would automatically K init for you. I don't know how they did that, but I would like to know as well. Let's see. Copy that. I usually try to keep this open in a text editor because it's just easy for me to keep track of what I'm doing. Let's see. Li Avro storage. Okay. Okay. All right, that should work. Cool, it's working. Let's do describe.
By the way, is the bridge for you as well super slow?
No.
Oh, okay.
Is it, how is it slow? Is you're not getting a response, or the jobs take a long time to run?
I'm not getting a response.
I'm logged into Bridge right now, so on
Okay.
my window
No,
you see Bridge.
that is good.
Let's see, where's Azadi? Let's go back to Azadi for a sec.
She's looking for location, yeah.
I wrote the code there. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. Where did you write this code? There we go. Latest using Avro storage, limited attributes, and not in AGC data addiction. Okay, yes. So I'm looking at this is Azadi, if you can see my screen, this is the actual data that you have access to about company/companies. And here is the data dictionary. So I'm just going through it. Company ID, universal name, company size. So far, so good. Logo media ID, show news. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting the message, but I think it appears that the data is there.
Well, the definitions might be there. The actual data in the fields, might be a question of.
You think we've noted? Oh, so okay, that's certainly true, and I can try to update this. There's certainly some fields in our data set that are mostly null. The default value for a lot of the fields you're going to encounter, except for the keys, right? So the keys of the table are always required to be populated. So for instance, in company ID has to be populated, otherwise there's no reference. And there's probably a few other fields in here that were required to be populated, but there's a good number of them. Blog URL, RSS URL, so on and so forth, where the values are often null because it's not required or we didn't capture it. So if that's the case, then yes, for sure, we're missing some data in the company's table.
And specifically, do we have location? And can we maybe sample, see what location looks like, or do we not have it in the definition?
We do not have location.
Have in the definition even.
Yeah, we don't have it in the company definition. In fact, I don't think, Nikolai, I can check real quick, but I don't think we have that in. I don't think we have that in nerds. I don't think we have that in the raw data, right? Let me go back to the raw data real quick. I'm looking at the raw data. Okay. So you make a good point. So we don't have location. Azadi, there's probably two things you can do, and these are ideas. So let's not don't don't do them right away, but let's talk through them. One idea you can do is to see who works at the company and then get the location of the people, and just pick the top person. Should pick the most common location of the people, and that's going to be very likely, where the company's located. I'm looking in the company raw data set, and actually in our raw data set for company, we don't store location either. Yeah. So by the way, if you figure out that code, if you do what I just said, which is, join it to the people who work there currently, you can do that via the member positions table, and then aggregate it and then find, the top, say, 1 or 2 locations. If you do that, please share the code. I'm sure that question is going to come up for, lots of other people. Okay. Very good question. What else? Let's answer these questions, and I think it's more productive.
So there is a table that we do have locales for companies.
Is that right? Which one?
I don't think we're company descriptions.
Do we pull it to Bridge?
We might not. No.
Okay. So Azadi, it sounds like we might have that data, and we can try to push it from LinkedIn's data set to Bridge. It shouldn't be. I don't think there should be a sensitive data set, so it should not be an issue. Okay, Yuzi, so you have a question.
You have a.
Oh, go ahead. So Yuzi, you have a question about latest. Great question. So let me show you some. You unfortunately don't have access to this tool I'm showing you on the left-hand side. That's correct. It seems to be differ among different data sets. So let me just show you. I'm just going to browse through some directories very quickly. Right. So okay, let's take
Dacheng, sorry, just one more thing on the location. We have actually in Rosetta, we even have standardized location for companies. The tricky part which we need to see is actually whether we're allowed to use that, because that data is partly bored and partly scraped from Rosetta. And I don't think it's easy for us to differentiate, but we can have a look. But I would be skeptical at this moment.
But we can. I think the descriptions data, the non-standardized one, is entered by company admins.
Okay. So that's from. But is it from the company page?
I think it's from the company page. Yeah, the company description. So some company pages have location on it.
Got it. Here comes the problem. We pre-populate company pages. But we can check. The whole Rosetta point is we pre-populate company pages and then give it over. And the way we pre-populate it, sometimes we scrape it, sometimes we have a huge ingestion engine, and sometimes we get it from external sources. And that is, the external sources might be the problem. Let's do the following. If you put this out as a Jira and put it on to Robert, he probably will be fine, but Kevin might object.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So Azadi, so the question, I think both you and Yiz have the same question, which is when do you use the pound latest? That's the question, right? So the point of using pound latest is that there are some data sets that we have where there is data stored at different aggregations, and actually we have multiple copies of the same data. So let me try to find an example of an instance where we have the same data set that's stored actually multiple times, and you can see what I mean. Hang on one sec while I pull it up. Let's see. Does this guy have it? No.
Yeah, all the EGC sets are already the latest snapshot.
Yeah. Okay. So long. Do you have just so we can show them real quick, Nikolai? What's a standard data set we have that has multiple snapshots?
If you just take any of the databases, so profile identity is a good one.
Okay. Let me take a look.
profile. Do identity. It's
Oh, there we go.
yeah,
Okay.
identity. Yep, and then there's a profile.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah, so that you see these are snapshots.
These are different snapshots.
So if you
Yeah.
go back one,
Right.
these are different snapshots at different timestamps.
Right. Okay. So Zadi and Isa, can you see my screen right now? This is unfortunately a tool you don't have access to. You could do this at the command line. You could basically navigate through the HDFS file system, and you would see this if you had access to our raw data. But basically, this is data databases identity profile. You notice that under profile, there's 3 files, and these 3 files typically represent different snapshots at a point in time. So this one might be the latest one. Which one's the latest one? This one's the latest one, 529.07. This one was a snapshot taken yesterday. This was a snapshot taken yesterday morning. Okay, so when you do pound latest, it's going to pull in this one by definition. It's just a convenience, right? Because if you didn't use pound latest, you would have to remember what the name of this file is, and of course this file name is changing every day as we take new snapshots. For you guys, so by the way, this is data databases identity profile, which is something, which is one of the data sets you have. But let me just show you what it looks like for you guys. Oops, wrong place. Jobs, EGC. You should have this. You should have a complementary data set, identity profile. Okay, so you notice here for jobs, EGC, identity profile, you guys do not have these snapshots. These Avro files are simply pieces where if you put all the Avro files together, you get the complete profile data set. So here's what you guys have. This is the data, identity profile, and then the data itself. Here's what the data looks like in our system. Yeah, so that's correct, Isa. So each file contains the entire data set as of the moment the snapshot was taken, right? So this is the data set we have. We have 3 of them for profile, identity profile. We have 3 different snapshots. For you guys, you don't even have the snapshots, right? So you go directly into these .avro files, which is simply component pieces of one snapshot. Long story short, I'm actually a little surprised that you see any difference when you do pound latest versus when you do simply slash, because the only reason it should be different is when you have multiple snapshots, and then if you didn't do pound latest, you would get all the data, and so you would be duplicating for most people their data 3 times. For you guys, there's no copies, right? You should be just getting it once. So in general, you should not use pound latest. But more importantly, and I'll check on this with the mentors, I don't know why you would actually see. I mean, even if you use pound latest, you should still see exactly the same thing because your latest is going to point to the same data. But I'll check on that and I'll get back to you guys. Great question.
So the only exception is that if you do pound latest, for once you're inside a particular file directory, it will actually just pull the latest file from that directory. So if you look at this where you were showing the snapshots, you see those are actually giving you all the Avro files. So when it doesn't have the structure for like hourly or snapshot structure, it will try to pull the latest file. So it would actually select a different Avro file to read from. But most of the time you don't want that because the individual Avro files contain only a portion of the data.
Yeah, great point.
So in general, you don't need to use latest, and
you shouldn't use latest.
To avoid, you should not use it.
You should not use latest. So guys, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. I will write an email to the entire team. I think Michael's team was instructed to use pound latest because it's kind of like it's common practice inside LinkedIn to use pound latest because we keep multiple snapshots. But for you guys, there's no multiple snapshots. So when you try to use pound latest, it's going to do the wrong thing, and it will pull one file instead of all files. But thanks for bringing that out. I'm glad we caught that that nuance. It's actually quite important, right? Because if you think about it, if you use pound latest for you guys will be getting something like 1/100th or 1/1000th of the complete data set, because usually there's hundreds to thousands of Avro files.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? These are great questions. I'm glad we covered that. We also still have trouble running Spark. You mean, I assume by Spike you mean Spark? Okay. So let me very, very quickly before we dive into Spark, let me describe. There's two modes. Actually, there's two modes of running Pig. We really only covered one, and there's also two modes of running Spark. So the two modes of running jobs via Hadoop are. Hey, is someone in a conference room? No? Okay. So the two modes of running a Pig are either you can run in the shell, right? So the shell is this thing, the grunt shell, and this shell is responsive. So every time I type in a line, describe raw, I get something back. Okay, so this is a responsive shell. I can also just run it at the Linux command line and run a command. I don't know the exact command by memory, but you can just run a command against a .pig file, and it'll execute that pig script, right? Same thing. It's just running through the entire thing. Same thing is true for Spark. So for Spark, there's two ways to run it. And actually, I'm not super familiar with Spark. So I'm going to have to refer, you'll see, I'm going to refer back to my notes in the, I'm going to refer back to my notes in the question and answers doc. So what do you need to do to run Spark? You need a kinit at the command line. Simply, the command is kinit, which you should do anyways, because the same problems will occur when you try to run Pig. You can run the scripts in standalone mode using REPL. REPL is simply a responsive shell, like Pig, like Grunt, rather. Or you can run scripts in cluster mode. So, for instance, if you were to run something in standalone mode in the REPL, the command is this line. Okay, and this will boot up a Spark shell, right? So now I'm in Spark. And Spark, in this case, I booted up a Python interpreter for Spark. There's also a Scala interpreter for Spark. There's also a Java interpreter for Spark. So I think if you look, and I'll try to put this into the documentation. There are different commands you would run. Oh, you didn't see my, okay. So Azadeh, I didn't type anything. I went to here. I went to the question and answers, and I went to the question that's called, what are the steps to use Spark on the EGC cluster? And I copied simply this first line, right? This is executing a command, I'll show you again, which is going to boot up a Spark shell. Oops. To get out of Spark, to get out of the shell, I think the command is exit. Yeah, okay, good. So simply copy and paste, right? If you look to see what it's doing, it's basically referencing something in my directory. I've installed Spark into in my home directory /Spark. This is the version of Spark that's compatible with our version of Hadoop. And then I've kicked off a program called PySpark. In addition, I'm pulling in a jar file. I'm pulling in a library that allows us to read Avril files, right? So basically, you run PySpark and you load a library to allow you to read Avril files. Of course, all of our data is stored in Avril format, which is why I'm loading this this particular library. You kick that off, and just like with a Pig, 30 seconds later or whatever, you get this interactive shell. And this shell is interactive, so I can add one line at a time. This is all Python, by the way. One line at a time, you can run it and sort of see how things are working, so on and so forth. Let's see. Okay, great. So the second thing is that the nuance here is that this interactive shell is running Spark in what is known as standalone mode, right? So I documented here. This is running Spark in standalone mode. What that simply means is all the processing, all the work, if you will, is being run through bridge. Sorry, is being run through the gateway, right? So every time I write a command here and type execute, it's not sending that command out to all the different nodes of our cluster. It's running it on that machine, which is gateway, which is a single machine. What I'm trying to tell you is, in this interactive standalone mode, don't try to do something with, don't try to do like massive joins with all of our data, because you will crash the server. It's just not designed for that. So if you want to run something, but it's very good for troubleshooting, right? It's just like Pig. It's very good for, it's just like Grunt, which is the shell for Pig. It's very good for troubleshooting your scripts. So make sure your scripts are syntactically correct. Make sure there's no errors. Make sure for the small data set you get back sensible results, so on and so forth. And then once you've done that, so once you've like troubleshooted your script, right? Let's say you have this script. This is a script all in Python. Let's say you run through it line by line, okay? You make sure you get the right results. You make sure nothing crashes. You make sure the results that come back kind of make sense. And now you want to run it for a much bigger data set, or you want to join a couple things together, and kick it off that way. So if you're in that mode, what you want to do is get out of the Spark shell, okay? And you want to run it, so back to the notes, you want to run it in cluster mode, and you want to execute it at the command line. In fact, I'm going to delete this. Oh. Okay. Right, so cluster mode is the mode in which Spark is sending the commands and distributing the work to the various servers, and that scales, of course. So here's a script. Here's a script that does, what is it doing? It's doing industry counts. So I guess it's doing count of companies by industry. You can read through it. If you load this script up and save it as a file called industry counts.py, and then you copy this very long, this is a very long statement, but you can sort of read through it to see what's happening. It's kicking off a program called Spark Submit. It's pulling in the jar I mastered before, and then it's giving a series of commands. What is the master? Meaning what is the controller for the cluster? It's called yarn. How many executors? I don't frankly understand all the rest of the script myself because I got this from Siegfried, but I trust that it works. But basically, you're kicking off a command called Spark Submit. You're pulling in this library. It's giving certain commands to tell Spark how to distribute the work. And then finally, you're executing this script. So if you run this at the command line, hopefully, this will kick off actually a job, right? So this is actually going to take a while to compute and process. Two other things, just so you guys know. So I'm planning over the course of the next couple of days to create an example for Spark using Scala. There's kind of pros and cons to each of the languages you can commonly use with Spark. The benefit to Python, I think, is just in general, people are more people know Python, right? And there's a lot of familiarity with Python, which is great. The benefit to Scala is that Spark was written in Scala. So some of the APIs, well, certainly the APIs that leverage Scala are more robust. And if you ever need to, really tweak the inner workings of Spark, it's certainly going to be in Scala. But it's a much harder language to learn. It's a much bigger ramp. Pros and cons to both. I think each team will probably decide what works for them and then go with it. But I'll try to get up a Scala example of that, just like this is a Python example in the next couple of days. Wow, Lots. I see what you mean. I mean, I'm seeing some hang here too. Oh, there it goes. Okay, never mind. And just like with a pig job, where you do something like a dump, this will often take a while because it's trying to process a lot of data and it's trying to distribute the work. Oops. And I ran into an error message. Okay, so there's something obviously wrong with that syntax of that command, and I will fix that. Boy, Nikolai, it's hard to do a live tutorial, isn't it?
That's live programming during a demo is
Yeah, exactly. Don't do this at home,
bad for
guys.
bad for your health.
Bad
Don't
for
do
your
it at
health.
conferences.
Don't do
At
it at
home, it's
conference.
fine. Don't do
That's
it at
right.
conferences.
Any other questions, guys? These are great. I mean, especially the latest one. Actually, that's actually very critical. I'm really glad you brought it up because I think there's probably many teams right now who are wondering why the heck, their data set is like 1/100. Like, why do I only have 5 million members in this data set? Somebody must be wondering that question right now. Azadi, any other questions we can go through for you guys? Those are the main ones. Okay. Nikolai, anything else that you want to bring up?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. So what I will do is, guys, I will document that pound latest um, fact in the question and answers. But more importantly, I'm gonna send an email out this morning to the entire team because I think that's a mistake that if you make that mistake, you can be off track for a long time and be really really confused why your data is kind of all messed up. So thanks for that, and hopefully all the other teams will avoid some of those mistakes. Okay, thanks guys. If there's any other questions, feel free to email them. My questions disappeared from Q&A file. Yeah, I reworded your files a little bit to make them a little easier to read, Azade, so other people can follow them. But it should still be there. I mean, the kind of core idea of your questions should still be there. Okay, thanks guys. And if there's more questions, send them my way, and we'll set this up on a recurring basis. Probably end of day on the East Coast time, so like a 6 p.m. East Coast time, and also early morning West Coast time, so 8 a.m. West Coast time, to give you guys easier access. Okay, thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.